Greetings, it's John G. Sutton here. Tales from the jails. I wasn't here yesterday, I had a day off. Most days I work, but yesterday I had a day off. Family persuaded me to put my feet up, or my foot up, as the case may be. And I did. So here we are today. I'm going to talk about the release of Paul Gadd. Paul Gadd, otherwise known as Gary Glitter, has been released from prison, having served 4 years of an 8-year sentence for molesting and interfering with young girls. I believe one was about 9 or 10 years of age. And the thing is, I'll talk about this, but he's obviously served his time, so it is incumbent upon us all in society to allow him the benefit of the doubt that he could rehabilitate himself. I mean, what is he, 67 years of age now? Something along those lines. So he's quite an elderly gentleman, or not so much a gentleman, you might say. But the problem that you've got, that my experience of dealing with paedophiles, is that they do not think that this is an offence. They believe that, seriously, they do believe this. I've spoken to numerous convicted paedophiles, and of course people who are just practicing paedophiles, who do believe that children as young as 8 or 9 do have a sex drive, and that sex drive should be allowed expression, and that if they do desire to have sexual relations with older men such as them, then that's to be allowed. They believe that this is right. I had a big discussion with that pervert PJ Proby when I worked with him, and he absolutely did believe that. He believed that young girls should be allowed to have sexual relations with elderly men, or because he was, at the time when I was working with him, he was 52. And the girl that he was attempting to have relationships with was 11 years old. Of course, I curtailed that by reporting him to social services, and they intervened, and I don't know if they took the girl into care or whatever they did, but they certainly prevented him from having anything further to do with that particular individual, which drove PJ Proby quite crazy, and he became extremely angry and threatened to murder me with a big foot-long Bowie knife, believe it or not, which he tried to attack me with, but unsuccessfully. I believe that paedophiles don't have it in them to actually change their direction. And if you look at what's happened to Paul Gadd, he previously served 2 years in Vietnam for having sexual relationships with young children. Before he got locked up in Vietnam, he served I think it was 6 months in prison in the UK for possession of over 4,000 indecent images of little children. You tell them that this is wrong. I've tried discussing this. There was a pervert at the Scrubs who was a paedophile, serving I think it was about 3 years, and what he had done was absolutely diabolical in my mind. You know, he really should have not been allowed out, and I did try and warn the authorities, you know, this man was going to do it again, because he told me he was going to do it again. And what his trick was, he'd gain an erection, yeah, and smear syrup onto his penis, and then get babies to suck the syrup off his dick. And he was in Wormwood Scrubs. There was another horrible paedophile there who'd been a major in the army, and he was doing about 5 years. What he did was, when he came out of the military, he got himself a job managing a care home for physically handicapped young people, boys really, and he was sexually molesting the all in the wheelchairs, you know, limbs missing, deformed limbs, couldn't walk, mostly couldn't talk properly, seriously handicapped children, and he was sexually molesting them. He got 5 years for that. But once again, telling them that this is not the way to behave is pointless, because they don't believe it. At the Scrubs, they also had a program that was, I've mentioned this before, it was very much like Clockwork Orange, where they wired the prisoner to a ECG machine, electroencephalograph, you know, and sat them in looked like a barber's chair, yeah, but they were strapped into this chair, you know, and they had these nodules fitted to the head and a television screen in front of them where they were shown diabolical images of torture, rape, people being burned alive, all kinds of horrible things, and they did an ECG reading of what was happening to their mind, and then they put them on a series of drugs and brought them back in say a month's time and tested them again. So the idea was to ascertain, were these drugs, was this chemical concoction actually working on their brain. The problem was that it did apparently change the way they were thinking, but it also caused physiological changes to their body. You know, the male genitalia was shrivelling up, and they were developing female-style breasts. So there was a lot of problem with that at the Scrubs. I had a go. I didn't have any of the drugs, of course, but I did sit in the chair and have the ECG put in, and this mad scientist type guy who was conducting these tests, when I'd finished, you know, like horrible stuff they were showing you, he said to me, he said, I've checked your encephalograph, you know, I've checked your readings. He said, do you realise, Mr. Sutton, he said, you could be actively homosexual. I tell you, I was out of that room pretty damn quick. Strange world, eh? Right, so Paul Gadd has been released from prison. Gary Glitter, he's out there, he's staying in a hostel. I believe he's being supervised. I saw something in the paper saying that his hostel is within walking distance of a number of schools. As long as he's being supervised, I think that's perfectly... I mean, there's schools everywhere. There's a school near my house. It's within, 5 minutes, 3 minutes walk of my house, you know. So if you were here, you know, you walk to the school. Personally, the only time I go to the school is to pick my grandson up. But that's... So really, if he's in society, he's in society, and it's beholden upon us all to hope and trust that he can be rehabilitated. My experience of people who are committed paedophiles is that they can't be rehabilitated because they absolutely don't believe that they've done anything to be rehabilitated from. Believe that. Yeah, it is absolutely the case. And hence, you know, you put them into prison and you release them without any psychological reassessment. I mean, if somebody has been psychologically tested and shown to be actively inclined to molest and abuse children, and we're opening the gates and letting them out, something's wrong. But at this point in time, society has decided that he is a free man. He's under licence for the next 4 years, and he will be observed, by which time he'll be in his early 70s. But my experience of paedophiles, it doesn't matter, you know, if they are in their 70s or 80s or 90s, they still are inclined to molest children. Sad. Anyway, it's that time of day Well, thanks to those who bought me a coffee. Paula, thank you. It's song dinger time. But I'm not going to sing, I'm going to read you a poem. So I hope you like me reading poetry. This is a poem by Roger McGough. Quite like Roger McGough. I was going to do a show with Roger McGough, but he'd already been booked. We were going to do the Everyman Theatre at Liverpool. Myself and the author Ron Ellis do an evening of comedy and poetry. But put Roger McGough on the bill as well, but he'd already been booked. He was doing the Empire, I think, the Liverpool Empire. I don't live at Liverpool, by the way. I live near Preston in Lancashire. This is Roger McGough's poem, Let Me Die a Young Man's Death, which is about 30 years too late for me, as you've probably guessed. So are you sitting comfortably? Have you got your goat there? Larry's got his goat? Or is it over the hills and far away? Let me die a young man's death, not a clean, in between the sheets, holy water death, not a famous last words, peaceful, out of breath death. When I'm 73 and in constant good tumour, may I be mown down at dawn by a bright red sports car on my way home from an all-night party. Or when I'm 91 with silver hair and sitting in a barber's chair, may rival gangsters with ham-fisted Tommy guns burst in and give me a short back and insides. Or when I'm 104 and banned from the cavern, may my mistress catch me in bed with her daughter, and fearing for her son, cut me up into little pieces and throw away every piece but one. Let me die a young man's death, not a free tin zipper, tiptoe, candle wax and war and waxing death, not a curtains drawn by angels born. What a nice way to go, death. I rather cocked that last verse up, didn't I? But anyway, Let Me Die a Young Man's Death by Roger McGough. I wrote a poem about death. It was for my friend's father, who was a very nice gentleman, really good family man, didn't want to die. And he was struck on a zebra crossing the road on a zebra crossing, and some maniac drove into him, and it took him about 2 years to die. He was badly injured, you see. And I wrote this poem. I'm going to recite it to you from memory. Yeah, about how he would feel the days after he'd passed into spirit, because he didn't want to leave his wife, you see. Because he looked after his wife. She's still alive, actually. She's in a nursing home. She's about 97, I think. An old lady now. But this is the poem I wrote for him. It's called I Was Gone. I was gone this morning when I looked in the mirror to comb my hair. In the living room I searched. There was no one in my chair. I was gone this afternoon when I tried to dry your tears. It's so hard to see you crying for those long ago years. I was gone this evening as you went to climb the stair. My footsteps beside you, but I was walking on the air. I was gone in the moonlight as the silent silver shone. Then I heard you whisper my name, but I was gone. There you go. I Was Gone by John G. Sutton. Thanks for getting my book and all the rest of it. Here we go. Happy days.